People.
Well,
We're recording?
I would assume
We are recording.
Meeting, please come to order. Barbara, please call the roll.
We have Commissioners Levine, Farad, and Noonan present.
This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. I have no opening remarks, and we have one public comment card, so Barbara or Yvette, please call that person.
This is from up in Bishop, a Don Zadiba, but you didn't put the item number on the card. Was it for item 2, public comment, or another item on the agenda?
Can you hear us? Don,
Yeah,
is that you?
He's looking at the agenda.
Yes, I'm looking at the agenda. It's actually agenda item number 19, Hayway Dam.
Okay, we can call you when 19 comes up, or you can speak now.
Or if you don't want to wait until item 19 comes up, you're welcome to speak now. It's up to you.
I would appreciate that.
Go ahead.
Okay, bear with me a second. Okay, my name is Don Zadiba. Do I need to spell the last name, or okay?
No, that's okay.
Okay. I'm the General Manager of Indian Wells Valley Water District. So on October 27th, I drafted a letter that we sent to your staff with comments on the draft environmental impact report for the Hayway Dam project. And we did receive a response from your staff dated July 5th. And in response to that letter, we did send a reply on July 19th, which your staff acknowledged receiving on Monday. So if I'd like to read the letter into the record. To Mr. Brian Gonzalez, dear Mr. Gonzalez, thank you for responding to our letter of comment dated October 10th, 2017. We appreciate your attention to this issue and your willingness to address our concerns regarding the potential effects of reduced seepage from the North Hayway Reservoir on the agricultural operations of the Butterworth Ranch, which is a going concern that has been in continuous operation since the early 1950s. Indian Wells Valley Water District acquired the property in 1993. While your responses are somewhat reassuring, we would like to see a detailed monitoring and contingency plan in place prior to construction. We anticipate that such a plan would include at a minimum the following elements. Number 1, the design, scope, duration, and operation of LADWP's groundwater monitoring program. Number 2, the steps that LADWP will commit to implementing in the event that the agricultural operations at Butterworth Ranch are adversely affected in the future by reductions in seepage from North Hayway Reservoir. And finally, the metrics that will trigger implementation of such steps. We would like to work cooperatively with your staff in the development of such a monitoring and contingency plan to ensure that the plan is mutually agreeable to both LADWP and Indian Wells Valley Water District. As part of such an effort, we propose to continue to monitor the groundwater levels in the monitoring and production wells that are under our control on and in the vicinity of the Butterworth Ranch property, and to provide the monitoring results to LADWP. Please let us know when we can meet to discuss this. And I will note that your staff did reach out to me on Friday, and we had another conference call on Monday. And they did commit to working with us cooperatively and collaboratively on a monitoring program to assure that there are no adverse impacts on our operations at the Butterworth Ranch, either during construction or afterwards. So I did appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come and read us the letter and participate in the hearing.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to come to Bishop.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay.
Okay, that closes, that's all the cards we had for item 2, so that closes the public comment for item 2.
Okay, thank you. General Manager.
Mostly just want to draw your attention to the recruitment marketing plan that should be on your desk. It lays out a number of different things, kind of gives you a summary of what we're going to be doing for the balance of 2018. I think the most important thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the targeted classes, which is on about the third or fourth page. They are all field jobs. They are the people that keep the system running and going, and that's who we target for recruitment. And those are some of those trade and technical jobs which are hard to fill and that we're, again, targeting so that we get enough people in the candidate pool to hire our field people. So if you have any questions, be happy to answer. Yes.
I asked a question.
Someone has a question.
Someone. The targeted classes, there's a list. Where does the poll person, the lines person, fit into that group?
They essentially can promote out of any of these three.
Any of those?
Yes.
And do we have a particular recruitment program for that class?
Not that, mostly the targeted ones are these classes, and what you can see, most of the material in here are very specific with field personnel in there. So we also do recruit the line workers, and we have recruitments for those as well, internal and external. But part of it is getting people on board, getting them through the onboarding process, and then into an apprenticeship program.
Because the rodeo, that was very successful in recruiting women to be lines people.
Yeah. And as we said, the National Rodeo is a very strong recruitment opportunity with other utilities trying to pick off our workforce. So
Yeah.
they are good locations for everybody.
Okay,
So,
good, thank you. Oh, one other thing. Have we made contact with the firefighters or the police or the
Yes.
laborers and see how they recruit and what works for them?
We have, and we're looking at mirroring some of what the fire and police departments have done to recruit women.
Are you going to be reporting on that?
Yes, we will.
And what's our timeline?
I know they've got at least one meeting, and they've got another scheduled, and so when we get that specific plan, 60 days, somewhere in that time period.
And when you say we, who's involved in?
That's our staff, our both the staff from the systems, but primarily our HR staff.
Oh, I wonder if you would consider having a commissioner present
Sure.
at that.
Yeah.
Someone who's been really pushing for women to be recruited to do the non-traditional jobs in GWP.
Sure. Love to have any commissioner that would like to.
Okay, thank you. I would be very interested.
That's all.
I just want to note that I really, really appreciate the improvement in marketing materials. Whoever created this book, I thought it's very ingenious, the resume format and the previous meeting, just other materials, the way that they're outlined. Not only do they provide an executive summary, but I think that they're done in a very creative, intelligent way.
I appreciate that. I'll pass that through to staff. Thank you.
No other questions of the general manager? Comments from commissioners on agendized items? Hearing none. Ratepayer advocate?
I will have a presentation as part of item 6B, and then other items as they may arise.
We will look forward to them. Thank you. So we'll go to management reports. We'll start on 6A, Boulder City Historic Preservation Day.
I'm wondering, I was going to see if staff could ask that we take 6B first, because I know that will be a longer presentation.
Good, let's do that.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to move down to that area, it's a little easier. So sitting with me today is Dan Barnes. Any operations questions, I'll turn over to him, and Louis Tang, any of our engineering questions. These are the two stars of those areas. I really want to spend some time going over the heat storm because we had such a significant event weekend before last. I think it's important to explain what happened, explain how we're learning from it, and what improvements we're going to make. So this is the July 6th through 10th heat storm response. It was a very unusual event. Sudden extreme record temperatures. We had 750 outages, both overhead and underground, and we went to our highest alert level, which is level 3. We usually think of that as something that would happen in the event of a medium to large earthquake, but it's where we have to tell customers that are calling it could be 48 hours before we get to your job and start it. So I talked about some of the records, and I've spoken about this a little bit before. We were really having climate extremes. Friday on July 6th, the highest July day ever. Saturday was the second highest weekend day we've ever had. Sunday was the 4th highest Sunday of all time. And what you look at is it's hot, record, essentially 3 days in a row, or right there in the top few of them. And I've talked about climate extremes. This is what the future looks like for us. We are seeing real extremes in the way of what we're having to deal with, and now thinking about what we're going to have to plan for. And you've all been here when we've had these extremes. 2016, driest year on record, and the next year is the wettest year on record. Peak load last summer, not even 12 months ago, but about 11 months ago. Hottest day in LA history within the last 8 years at least in downtown LA. And frankly, it reached pretty close to that in downtown just that weekend 10 days ago. We ended up having, as I said, about 750 outages. 114,000 customers lost their power at any given time. Now, we never had more than about 46,000 out at a given time, but things went on for several days. So over the entire period, 114,000 customers were affected. This was highly unusual in that in the metro area, we had 5 times the outages than we did in the valley. That is, staff who've been here for 30 and 40 years have said we've never seen anything like this, where the outages are significantly higher in downtown, midtown, the west side versus the valley. We also had Friday to Saturday. We told customers it would be 12 to 24 hours before we would get out there and be able to repair their job. And Saturday and Sunday it got to 48 hours, as I said. Something real simple, but it kind of is one of those general understood items, but we realize sometimes the public doesn't realize that. Overhead lines on poles see more outages. They happen more often because they're exposed, but when there is an outage, you can see it. And you can find it immediately, and it takes a lot less time to fix that outage. So more outages, shorter duration. When it's underground, they happen less frequently because they're in conduit and the cable's protected. But when there is an outage, it takes a lot longer because you've got to go. You first got to find out where that outage is, and then you've got to go repair it underground. And I've got some pictures in a little while that'll show you how much more challenging it is than doing that on an overhead line. Wanted to talk about the heat wave. So again, kind of getting back, a normal heat wave is kind of what we're going through right now. It is 1 degree, it's let's just say 85 degrees on day 1, day 2 is 90, day 3 is 95, day 4 is 100, day 5 is 100. And there are outages, it stresses our system, but they're happening over a 5-day period, and customers that are out, we can respond quickly, move on to the next job. What tends to be a lot of our outages is a transformer, and it affects 2, 4, 5 customers. We have a replacement program, but sometimes they don't last as long as we expect, and we go out there, fix it. It's a 4 or 5 hour job. Those 5 people are back up. So that happens, and it happens over a period of time, and then sometimes there's a larger outages. What was really weird in this, that's a very technical term, I know, but it was really weird in this heat wave, is if you look on July 5th, it was 88 degrees in downtown LA. The next day it was 100, it was a 20-degree difference. It's like we had 3 or 4 days of a heat wave happen in 24 hours. And everything hit, frankly, just right then. If you look the next day, it dropped a little bit, but look at the nighttime temperature. Usually the night times were running 65 to 69. Nighttime was almost 80 degrees. When the nighttime temperature doesn't cool off, people are using their air conditioning continuously, and that long duration of 3-4 days of nothing turning off and no kind of no variation on our grid causes anything that's stressed that causes it to blow or stop working, if you will. And you can see the number of customers impacted then the next line. And maybe I finished the last line. It went from 108, 2 days later 98, and then, like I said, it kind of peaked fast and it stopped quickly. So a very unusual heat incident that was only a couple days long. You could see we went from Friday at 4 p.m., 4,000 people were impacted. Within 5 hours, we had 46,000 people impacted. So it went up, 12-fold almost. And then you can see about 1 a.m. it started coming down. Crews were out there doing the repairs. People their service was restored, and we had some more outages as well. And then you can see the number that are restored there. But the key thing here is it went hot really fast and had a huge impact to our system. Here, this shows you how quickly it went up in the red line, and then slowly comes down, and the green line shows you when customers were restored. Here's the communities impacted the most. The red color are circuits that were affected the most, and then yellow behind that and green behind that. And again, what you could see, even down right off the ocean, we had circuits that were stressed. Areas that were built when there was no air conditioning, and over time people have put air conditioners in, or if it was me, I'd have been down at the store buying 2 or 3 air conditioners and sticking them in my windows because it was that hot. And that's, we think, what happened. So a huge stress in our system. And again, usually you'd see this with a lot more of the red in the valley because that's the hotter temperatures. But you can see where it affected us. There's we break things up by district sometimes, so we know where to make a more strategic focused communications. And again, this shows you where the impact was. So when there's an outage, when there's an underground outage or an overhead outage, but especially on the underground, we had for a job, and I told you it takes a little more time, so we have to start with traffic control. Before we can do anything, we got to make sure that our trucks are safe, our crews are safe, we can get into the line, and the order was wrong, but because the top thing is our crews are safe. That's the very top priority. But have to stage the traffic control and then start the work. So there's a worker that goes down into the vault, into the underground. You can see that yellow tube. We don't go down into one of those vaults without some sort of ventilation. So we've got ventilation running there. This is a good picture. The ventilation is there. The cable is there, ready to be fed. You can see we have to take an entire set of supplies with us on the truck. That's there. This is cable being pulled. So you pull the old cable out of the conduit. And so what you can see is it's coming up from the vault. That cable has blown basically, and this is a really great. That's what that cable looks like. So I can't even lift them up. These weigh a ton. I sometimes think people think our cable is like an extension cord they have at home, and it isn't. This probably, I don't know, weighs 20 pounds. This one is what they're supposed to look like. That one is one that's blown, and we left it in the bag because it's got lead in it. The new stuff doesn't have lead in it, so it's unsafe to take that out of the bag. If you'd like to come up and look, or we'll have someone walk around, but that's what a cable looks like when it is no longer working, and it's very similar to what this cable looks like that we pulled out of the ground. So this is the person underground. Down in that vault, it can reach up to 160 degrees. That's why we start with the ventilation, so it can draw air out from that vault, and the air can come in there because there's vents. Those are the conduits in the middle that you can see. This is new underground cable that has been pulled into the vault, and the worker's about to start the splicing, which you can see kind of in the top left. Those will connect to and splice into the cables that are going into the conduit that you can see. But sometimes our staff, we obviously can't go down and work in 160-degree heat, but once it gets to the bare tolerable temperature, they go down. Sometimes they can only work 15 minutes. They have to come back up, and we send another person down, and they're doing rotations because it's that hot down there. This was the mayor went out and looked, and we were showing him how we pull cable. And what you can see in the middle on the far left, where there's that pink road crew working, That's where behind that was where the cable was going down underground, and it would be fed all the way under Wilshire and then come back up. We were pulling the old cable out. The really tough thing is, as we say it, things take time. If you're pulling that cable out and you face a situation like this page, sometimes the cable just breaks, and then it takes even longer because you've got cable 100 feet down a 6 or 8 inch conduit that you've got to get into there, grab that cable, and pull it out. So you can see it. It isn't like putting cable on an overhead pole. It is very time consuming. And believe us, we hate having our customers out as much as they hate being out.
Dave, is there any way of anticipating which cable is the most vulnerable in circumstances such as this in advance?
Great question. I'm going to get to that in just a couple slides. So thank you. For the staff dealing with this event, they are working 16-hour shifts. We had about 500 people on at any given time. Right at Friday when we could see the temperature going up, you remember we only had 4,000 people out at 4, but we told her, you all need to stay. We held them past their shift, kept them on rather than let them go home and then report. And even throughout the incident, we brought crews from Lone Pine, Bishop, Mojave, Victorville, and all of our contract crews. This was a Southern California event. So Southern California Edison, I talked to their general manager, they had about 100,000 customers out as well. All of their crews were working. They were tapping that same contract crew pool. So basically anybody in Southern California, and in our case, right up to Northern California, that could work on lines and get here was out working on lines in Southern California to restore customers. And then we didn't end the event on Sunday. We essentially ended the event and kept it till Thursday so that we could make some of the repairs that still had to be made. Because our goal when you're out of service is we want to restore your power immediately. Sometimes that's done temporarily. In fact, usually it's done temporarily, and we often have to go back when we can and make an additional repair, a more permanent repair. Not all the time, but at times. Sometimes it can take months to get all of the permanent repairs depending on how big the outages were. But we kept that level 3 incident until Thursday so we could make sure that we had customers back to at least a level where they had some reliability. But it is the challenge with an event that happened 2 weeks ago, and now we're looking at something right now, is we can't make every permanent repair in that 2-week period, but we try to do our best. And as an aside, when the meeting started, we had 42 customers who were without power on like 15 to 20 scattered incidents. So a bunch of 2 or 3 per transformer failures going on. Also, we talked about, so when you do that splice, that worker was down in the vault making the splice. We now have to splice the old conduit to the new conduit because we're not putting in any more lead conduit. We don't put that in. And that splice takes about 16 hours to do and is very comprehensive by putting the old lead cable to the new synthetic cable. So it takes a lot of time to do that. Cable installations, so you can see this person working on the splice near the conduit. You have to make sure there's no power entering that vault when a person's down there. That means any power that's going through there, really, you've got to make sure that we've locked out all the sources of energy. We've got to install the grounds, remove the cable, clean the conduit before we put new cable in, make sure that it can support all the new synthetic cables and that we've got all the splicing down there. And there's, again, a person doing that, sometimes passing it off as their shift ends, and then have to make sure we do the proper phasing. I say their shift ends because after 16 hours, we send our staff home. In my mind, it's irresponsible to have people working on high voltage after a 16-hour period. Some utilities have staff go 24 hours and even 30 hours. You are asking for safety problems and putting your staff at risk if you don't get them out and get them to have some sleep before they come back and start all over again. We did have an incident. We had a lot of communications, 81 media inquiries, news alerts, web updates, social media. We utilized Nextdoor, Facebook, and Twitter, and Nextdoor is one of those newer things. Obviously, when you have bad news, you have your assistant make it. So there was Marty did a great job and was answering questions. I can't tell you how much I appreciate his help there. This was Facebook, and what you can see if you kind of look on the bottom of the left hand, that's a customer. When's the electricity going to come back on? I just have to be like, we don't know. We cannot tell you when the power is going to come on. We can give you general time frames, but until the power comes on, until that person is down there seeing what's happened, if you pull the cable and it breaks in the middle, that's a 2 to 4 hour increase in the job time. There are times you go to switch everything on and it doesn't switch on. It is extensive. We can tell people if it's underground, it's going to take a lot longer than overhead. Everybody, and we've got to that point in kind of society where we all want an answer now that's exact. And the one that we've had 100 times, if you can track a FedEx package across the country, why can't you tell me when your power gets on? You can't put a microchip in our power and it tells you everything that's going to happen. So unfortunately, it's how it is. And on the right, there's one that says, can I ask if we're entitled for reimbursement? And people can file a claim, but a power outage, while they happen very infrequently, is something that is going to happen and you have to plan for. We're talking internally about starting to make a communication of if customers have medicine or anything that has got to have refrigeration, perhaps a small generator. We need to look at this as we are on our side as prep for a big earthquake. Customers need to think of that as well. And if they thought they might be without power for a week because we had a giant earthquake, they need to think of what they might need for a week. And some customers might need a generator, might need a small refrigerator. There's also discussions with that blocks, like one person become known as the person that has the generator, that the whole block can come store their medicine there that needs to be refrigerated or anything that is required for life. As an aside, customers who have a medical condition that need electricity, we tell every one of those when they go onto that medical support rate, you've got to have a backup plan in the event of an outage, and most of those customers have a generator. The last thing we want to say as electric utility is to go buy a generator, but there are huge disasters that can happen, and if you need to be prepared with refrigerated medication, you need to figure out a way to do that. Here,
Dave, can
yes.
I just ask you to go back to the time estimate and the response,
Certainly.
we don't know. And the fact that if it's above ground versus underground, there's differences. I know that one of the greatest frustrations, and you know too, was the we don't know and no idea about time frame. I wonder if it would be, just thinking out loud, I wonder if it would be more helpful instead of we don't know, and I don't know the answer to this, if we could say it could be anywhere from A to B, even if B is 72 hours, rather than just plain we don't know.
When customers call in, we do give them, it's like at the beginning of it looks like it could be up to 12 hours. Then by the middle of the night, it looks like a 12 to 24 hour. On Saturday, it looks like a 24 to 48 hour time period. So we can block them that. We also have an outage management system that I'll talk about in a minute. We can tell our customers, in fact, they can just go online and find out, has that outage been assigned? Are there staff en route? Are they working on it? But when it gets to that, they're working on it again, we can give generalities. And what staff is also coming up with is kind of the what to expect during an outage. We absolutely need to be much more clear and straightforward in explaining, here's what an outage does, here's what our crews are doing, here's what's happening, here's what the general conditions are, here's where you can go and find information. And so giving people as much as we know and we can, and then in advance of an outage, providing more customer education on what they can expect and what they need to plan for. We use Twitter a lot. We had a lot of positive comments on Twitter. We really had a lot of comments through Nextdoor, and we had a lot of individuals that said, thanks for letting us know through Nextdoor. So we use social media a lot in this. We had almost 200 reps working. A normal weekend's about 10,000 calls. We had almost 30,000 calls this weekend. The peak time on a Saturday with calls might be 2,000 calls. We had 11,700, and wait times were 8 minutes on average. So we had staffed up, and the waits were still long. Again, usually estimated times of restoration 4 to 10 hours on a day. The lower end usually an overhead, the higher end an underground. But during the heat storms and the complexity, we had to get to that 12 to 24 hour period. I like this slide because it's a reminder. Someone in an office in front of a computer doesn't push a button and everything comes back. It is people out there working hard, climbing a pole, doing challenging, difficult work when it was 112 degrees, and doing everything they could to bring power back. And what we find is when the crew drives up, as the people become very aware, the customers, it is a very labor-intensive effort to bring power back. And again, we had 500 people at any given time doing that. But what are the next steps? So we do have, as I said, got to make the permanent repairs for those temporaries that we made during the outage. It is ongoing, and we're working on that. We do review and reprioritize circuits. So there's a formula we use, and here's the priorities. And it's how many outages, how overloaded is that circuit, how old is it, its age, outages, and basically load on the circuit that we place. And here are the districts that will be doing the work, and you can see the number of circuits that we're working on. It's really spread throughout the city. These are lower voltage. These are kind of a lower and medium voltage. Again, these are the priorities. These are what will be worked on next. And if there's an outage, it can shift the priorities. So based on the outages that we have, we go back and look, and Lewis's staff reevaluates and sees if something needs to move up in the priority. And then here's the medium circuits, 34 kV. Again, shows it's really across the city that we need to be doing these upgrades. We've got to, so one thing that we have done, and this was a good learning experience for me as well, is we have really not utilized planned outages. Planned outages is where you go to a neighborhood and you say, it might happen once every 10 years. On August 24th, your power is going to be out from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon while we do a lot of repair and circuit replacement. What most staff has done and been our general approach is we try to do an entire repair kind of on the side of the existing, and then we go out for a much shorter period of time and move the repair, basically the new stuff, to replace the old stuff. And that takes much longer to do. So in order to replace our cable, which is very old, and especially those circuits, if we can tell people, and it's standard in the industry, we don't do it, but all the other utilities do, or once, again, on a very infrequent basis, you just let all your customers know in advance, hey, there's going to be a day when there's going to be power outage, and if it turns out that the day is going to be a hot day, we stop it. We don't do it. But we let people know in advance that we need to do an upgrade, and so we can do it as quickly as we can and upgrade more infrastructure as quickly as we can. Continuing to hire dispatchers, line workers. We are going to want to look at traffic restrictions, because those are a challenge, especially in the high traffic areas. We can work between 9 and 3, and if you put a half hour for traffic control and a half hour for a lunch sometime during that period, that's like 5 hours of work that you can do on a street to do the replacement. So we've already contacted Metro, and their general manager and I are going to sit down and see, are there any things we can think of? Staff's already kind of come up with the idea, well, if it was downtown, maybe we could work on the outbound lanes in the morning and the inbound lanes in the afternoon, so we're working in the areas that have much lighter traffic, and maybe extend the day to 7 hours or 8 hours, so that we can just work a lot faster. Staff is very, we've got to change this, because staff can literally be walked up and provided a ticket, the person working, that they have to pay because they'll be in violation of the traffic restrictions. Again, absolutely a need for restrictions, but let's figure out what we can do with Metro to see if there's some things that we can just extend the day a little longer and make repairs faster. We had an entire hands-on meeting to talk about our incident command and public information effort. We will, at a level 2 and well, actually for every incident, we'll have an incident command as if this was an unplanned emergency, because they are. But especially when they're level 2 and level 3, we will create the entire incident command center, have staff representatives there, and utilize this as a fire incident, like a forest fire, any fire department would or police department would. We'll have always a media representative at the electric trouble station, very close coordination, and we're going to start focusing our customers to say the most current information you'll get either is online, at Twitter, or Nextdoor, the app and the website, so that we really can focus customers to the best source of information. We will eventually have the ability to send out text messages, and we're working on that right now. We invested in an upgrade of our outage management system last year, and that's going through the process, and that upgrade should be finished in March. And we've already got the text messaging capability, so when the upgrade's done, we can tie those two together so we can start sending information to our customers via text.
Is it easier to do text than emails? Can we do emails also?
We would give the option to customers which they would like, or both.
So we could do either
So we
one.
can do either, yeah, we could do those. We would like to remind people that they need to consider their pets, and you can, even the Humane Society has said you've got to think before there's an outage that you've got to make sure that you've got a plan for your pet, especially if it's elderly or it's in an extremely hot area. This was our, as I said, our outage management system. This is how it shows up on our website. That is underway. There is a website that you can click on any one of those, and it'll say, how many customers are effective, what the status. That status is being dispatched right now. There's an estimated restoration time. And again, farther during this last event, that moved to a longer duration. We, again, did a post-incident review. What you can see here is this is looking essentially at the work, those highlighted yellow ones. How can we get the work done faster? How can we look at getting work done faster when there's not an incident? So we looked at how we could do that. But we've got all of these steps assigned to different individuals to, again, improve our communication with the public. These are the highest level communications item, and again, you can see looking at how we get information out via the web, via the mobile, and our mobile website, the texting functionality, our voice response system. Something that did come up that we need to encourage customers to do is get a little solar cell phone charger. They're not very much money, but if there's an extended outage, that is your lifeline, not just to finding out when power is restored, but to emergencies in your family. So having something that can charge your phone during an outage is very important too. There's a lot of talk about, what have you been doing though to prevent these outages? So we've invested over basically $2.3 billion over the last 3 years on infrastructure and proactive maintenance. And this is an important slide. This is actually our entire capital infrastructure investment, not just power, not just local distribution or but this is everything. And what it shows the most is when deregulation was coming in around 2000, utilities did scale back somewhat on their capital investment. It looked like LA scaled back a lot. And also about 20% of the workforce retired at that time with incentives. So just personal hindsight, there was much less investment in infrastructure than should have been made during especially the last half of the 1990s. And then as you can see, there was a bit of a blip, but it wasn't until 3 or 4 years ago, well, about 5 years ago, that LADWP got back into the level of infrastructure replacement it should have. And with the support of the board, the council, the mayor, we now have a rate plan that allows for across-the-board infrastructure at levels that it should be. And the strange thing is, you look at 1999 to 2000, it's under $200 million. And right now, we're at 1.3 billion, so a real significant increase. Here's the specific investment in power infrastructure, and you can see we were able with planned and foreseen rate and funding levels to significantly increase our investment in infrastructure. So we've been spending a lot more than the average until 4 or 5 years ago. We've almost doubled our infrastructure investment literally in the last 10 years. So we are doing everything we can, but that's not something that's going to change overnight. It's going to, unfortunately, to get to the level we should be, take another decade to get where we should be back to a normal infrastructure replacement level. A few things we did in the last year: over 3,000 poles replaced, 950 transformers, over 50 miles of underground cable. They all surpassed our goals. And I asked staff, okay, does that mean our goals should be higher? But we literally set our goals based on the staff we have, the money that's coming in, and the impact to local transportation. So they are set as high as they can, and we're exceeding those levels. We also did some work in the transformer replacement. If you remember, last summer we had a receiving station, which is essentially a station where there's a bunch of transformers. And we looked at our entire system and created a plan to replace a significant number of transformers before this year. And we were just finishing that basically last week. And this was the mayor that came out to look at the replacement of the transformer that was going on at that point in time. We'd like to, at this point, also let you know, so we've offered the media the ability to come look at any of our receiving stations, our distribution stations, our transformers, go down in the vault, take pictures, get out to an overhead line replacement. If any of the commissioners would like to go, please let us know and we'll take you out so you can see these in person. Again, you have to see someone pulling this cable through a conduit to really realize how challenging it is. And again, the weight, that is extremely heavy to try to pull through a conduit.
Dave, can we back up a minute?
Sure.
When you just talked about infrastructure, what we've done, then I just wonder how that, if there's a little bit of, I'd like to see how that plays into what you originally said, and that is in the metro area. It was significantly higher power outage. And yet, the new circuits allowed for transmission of power to maintain reliability in the west side. So it seems like counterintuitive. What have we done for reliability in the west side? And then why then was the higher outages
Certainly.
in the metro area?
So because the outages are usually significantly higher in the valley and lower in the metro
Yes.
area, we focused more of our infrastructure replacement in the valley. Doesn't mean we haven't been doing infrastructure replacement, as you can see, 50 miles of underground cable in the metro area. But most outages that we deal with are in the valley. This was one of those that was just so highly unusual in that it was so hot in the metro area, it stressed the system, which really doesn't usually happen. So that caused all the outages. It also has us go back and looking at all the priorities that we've set over the last several years and look at what the priority is for the future. This that list that I had showed, that's way back.
Yeah, and
Farther that kind of, but that list, and we'll be looking at that and see, do we need to invest more in the metro area than we have?
yes.
Probably yes. And that
Okay.
the valley has had such a significant investment in it, it looks like it should be able to handle most of the load. But I'll also tell you, again, because every event's different, those 40 customers that were out today, most of those are in the valley. So you just can't tell where the heat's going to hit and stress the system the most.
There's an item 8A2. It talks about the new circuit allows for transmission of power to maintain reliability in the west side, and that was done during the month of May. New cables were installed. So because of what was happening in the valley, that it didn't have any impact in Metro, or had nothing to do with that?
They don't really have too much to do with each other. It's the transformers is where the power goes out. We really didn't have any issues on our transmission system or even the generation. This was all the local smallest wires in neighborhoods that were failing.
Because I know towards the end of that heat storm, I asked where were the outages, and I think it was Los Feliz, and I forget the other.
Windsor Square, Hancock Park.
Yeah, they were
Koreatown.
Koreatown.
Yeah.
That's where they were, and so I wondered what was happening there. What were the issues there that they were having the outages then?
So it's usage, it's power usage that is very rarely seen in the metro area and in those neighborhoods. And then older infrastructure, and we'd replace some, but we haven't replaced enough to stop these outages from occurring and get us back to a level where we'd like to be.
Okay, and then another issue. You mentioned animals.
Yeah.
The animal shelters, if the power goes out there, then it's really hot for animals. And I know that's been an issue in the valley. And I'm wondering if we have any ideas of cooling rooms for the animals?
We don't, but that's a good suggestion, and we can go talk with the animal shelters. And
Yeah, because I saw that we went out there and the temperature was just, way in the hundreds, so like 112 for these poor animals, and I wondered, what can we do?
So, and the Humane Society, I know the webpage kind of lays out some things that you can do, and we'll look at finding the exact pages with that information.
Right.
And providing that to customers.
Because
through
that's city, and what are we?
Certainly.
What can the city do to provide cooling rooms for cats and dogs?
Sure. So the next two graphs are standard measurements in the industry, and we call them SAIDI and SAFE, which is the System Average Interruption Duration Index. What they basically is how frequent do outages happen, and if they happen, how long? So it's frequency and duration. So this is the outage frequency. So this is the SAFE, and we are the dark blue line. And what you can see is we had a significant number in 2011, did a bunch of transformer replacement, and we've been down, again, close to the lowest area. The only one lower than us is SDG&E, which has very temperate conditions. But what this shows is that even with the events that we have, our outages, our customers experience lower outages than here PG&E and SCE. When they happen, how long do they last? If a customer has an outage, it's usually less than 2 hours. And again, we're the dark blue line, and what you can see is we're doing well. They're low, and they're lower than they have been historically. I understand that that's not what you want to hear when you've been without power and it's 110 degrees for 36 hours. So we do have to, again, increase our outage management notification to the greatest level that we can. But we do have good and consistent low levels of frequency and duration for our outages.
Can I ask you a quick question
Certainly.
about that? I don't know if this is accurate or anecdotal or inaccurate, but I was told by someone just one person who is in the SCE area, that both in terms of the most recent heat storm and in general, he gets notified by SCE either that they have an outage or that they provide more sort of email information than we do. I don't know if that's accurate or not. And if we can fix that.
Yeah, and they do. And part of the reason is they've already got that outage management upgrade tied to the text messaging that we will be getting and have next fall, and tied to an email option that we need this upgrade. So staff knew that, got on that, and again, it should be, it's in the process of the upgrade and should be ready in about 6 months. And then the other part of that is the smart meter, the whole smart meter effort. So we're starting, and within the next 60 days, we'll be issuing the RFP for what's the communication piece of our distribution automation, which again is kind of the first piece of when you go to that smart meter. You can do it separately, but it's all, as far as I'm concerned, kind of engaged. That's going to tell our staff how our system is working on a little bit more macro. When I say macro, like neighborhood or street level. When we get to smart meters, it will tell us on a house-by-house basis or a meter-by-meter basis. Again, right now, we find out there's an outage when a customer calls us.
Mm-hmm.
When that distribution automation communication system is put in, and then smart meters can be put in and communicate with especially the dispatch center, it will tell us the outage before the customer would know, and then we can send out a notice. It will be all automated and occur right then. But we are getting to that point. We aren't there, obviously, but we're moving in that direction.
Good.
And then with that, just ending with, again, a few more pictures of our employees working on the system. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions by commissioners?
First of all, I just want to applaud your efforts to go from 45,000 customers being out of service to 40 this morning. That's very commendable.
Thank you.
And I think a presentation like this is so useful for our ratepayers to understand exactly what's involved in getting their power up and running again. So I applaud you on your work. I applaud you on the presentation. I also want to take a moment just to thank the Office of Public Accountability for their report, which really parallels, but probably in a more micro detailed capacity, how we compare to other utilities, not only within our vicinity, but it also cross compares how we're doing compared to California and different states throughout the country. So I believe this is available, right, for everyone, but I think this works nicely with your presentation.
We have that loaded, and so the ratepayer advocate could present that to the board and the public if
It's very
you'd like
insightful.
to.
I have one other question, and perhaps the ratepayer advocate would like to chime in. What, if any, are the implications of all of this for our aggressive push toward renewables? Does it suggest that if we had more renewables, we'd be more independent and less dependent on these problems, or could it cut in the other direction and imply that we've got to be careful and not go overboard in terms of power availability, or are these entirely separate considerations?
They're not separate at all, and long run, again, technology isn't fully evolved, but long run, you could have renewables, you'd have battery storage, you'd have energy storage, you'd have all sorts of things that can get you through long-term outages and long-term system challenges. But currently, with current technology, when we have these high heat waves and heat storms, the vast majority of power that is being used to keep the system running is fossil fuel. So again, that will change over time. There's got to be some new technologies and other things go on.
Dr. Pickle?
I think the problem is more learning to adapt our processes and our technology and our forecasting to understanding the effect of renewables. I think this event was a learning experience for us all in terms of what happens in the evenings now. The peak has moved from 5 p.m. to nearly 8 p.m. And the sun's gone down or going down by 8 p.m. So you lose that additional energy. One thing that might help in a small way, because not many batteries are purchased at this point, is to get our standards for smart inverters out where people could connect batteries more easily to solar systems that would allow them to keep running to some degree if things go out. If failing a long-term struggle on standards. The PUC is in their third round of standards for smart inverters. So I think that it'd help to be moved forward on that front.
I think what you said something that I want to state a little more bluntly, and that is, when there's a power outage, your solar system doesn't feed power into the grid. It could feed power into battery, and you could use the battery, but the solar energy that could feed back into the grid could harm somebody working on your power. So the solar goes down in a standard setup during a power outage.
The rooftop, yeah.
I'll add
Rooftop solar, thank you.
a key component of the smarter inverter standard is when the power goes out in the grid, you want a very reliable separation between any power running in that house and the grid.
Yes.
Well, I join my fellow commissioners in complimenting and thanking you. This is very informative, necessarily so. Our ratepayers clearly had, understandably, a lot of concern and question and anxiety and even anger. And I think that this is an extremely informative presentation, and I want to compliment you for it.
Thank you.
I have some slides that I'd like to go through. Some of them will be repeats of days, so I'll skip through those. Shall I do those from here, or?
I'm happy to, if you just tell me when.
Dan, you want to pass the cable around? Dan? Yeah, do it at the end.
Oh, wait.
I apologize, I'm going to get a little more technical, but it helps to understand some of the issues and pieces of good news and bad news, although, as the general manager stated, when you're out, none of this helps. On definitions, there are three major definitions with a fourth caveat. One is the system average interruption frequency, which is how many times a year are you likely to be out, system-wide in DWP. The second is the system average duration index, and that's essentially how many minutes are you likely to be out in a year out of perhaps more than one outage. The third one that we're going to spend a little time on is if you're a customer and you're out, how long on average will it take to get back into service? It's the service interruption. That's the CAIDI, or Customer Average Interruption Duration Index. And then the caveat to all of this, in gathering these statistics, you always have to ask the person reporting, does it include major event days or not? And the statistics in this area for utilities started getting more formal in the 1990s. And one of the first definitions of a major event day was if 10% or more of your customers were out. Well, we didn't hit the major event day definition of 1993. That definition got changed in 2003 to something more complex because it felt the perspective was it wasn't fair to major utilities. So all the statistics here include major event days because one of the things we look at is how resilient we are. And I think this is important for the resiliency component. If we have a major event, how quickly can we get back? Here are the two charts that the general manager showed. One is how many times per year, and then how many minutes per year, where we look better than a lot of the industry. And then we can look at national data, and if we look at the type of utility, both on the left on the frequency and on the right on the duration, municipal utilities with or without major event days look better overall than the investor-owned or the rural co-ops. And I think the rural co-ops have a geographic disadvantage in that they're typically based in farm areas. If we look at all the states where bigger numbers are bad, California and DWP look better than the nation. If you look at duration, we're not better than the best. We're grouped in the middle, both California and DWP. And these are on the system-wide numbers of frequency, number of times per year, and total number of minutes per year out. If you start adding in the customer restoration time, or CADI, this chart, the top line, shows the average restoration time with and without major events. The dotted line at the very top, we didn't have any major events in 3 of the years, and in 2016 we had a major event. So the statistics with and without major events differ. But our CADI number is higher than a number of California, substantially higher than a number of California utilities. Nationwide, we're about average, and I think that's the area where we need work. The general manager's already pointed out areas where we're working on that. The restoration, actually, let me back up. Our frequency is pretty good, and a simplistic way of looking at it is our investments, and is our system in good shape? Does it stay together? Do we not have interruptions very often? This is the investment level. We do pretty well there, and that's in part because we started accelerating our investment in the early aughts. We were, in spite of deregulation, we were worse than most. Dave pointed it out that we're worse than typical. We were probably first quartile in capital investment in the early aughts. And after the 2006 heat storm, we stepped it up. And now we're in the fourth quartile, third to fourth quartile in terms of investment spending nationwide among the utilities. So we're on the path, but there's a lot of backlog because there was a very low level of investment in the 90s and in the early aughts. Second component, we need consistent, proactive power reliability investment. So we need to keep down the path we're going. Distribution automation is expected to help. Exactly as the general manager said, getting that distribution investment in will help us identify outage areas and plan workforce better. But to the meter level, the economics are less clear to the meter level, so I think that'll be an active discussion as we move forward. Getting the overall distribution information down to the major substations and the feeders would be very important. Taking it all the way to the meter, the economics are not as clear. Areas for improvement. We're already working on better communication. The second thing is generally long recovery times are an indication of too low a staffing in field personnel. And that matches some early preliminary draft numbers on benchmarking. It looks like our number of linemen is low, and we need to continue building that. We're expanding that now, but we need to build the linemen in the field and the number of linemen in the field, and perhaps we need to look at how apprentices are used in this process, because one of the bottlenecks is you only are allowed one apprentice per crew. And if you're working on non-live lines, is it possible to take an experienced apprentice with a less experienced apprentice on the crew to help that process? Because we are constricted, and the question is, what other things can we do to build the capability and investment on, or build the number of linemen and make it easier for them to do restoration work in this context? And finally, I would like to second Dave Wright's comment. You can't run the overtime too high on the linemen, you really have safety risks. So you have to be careful with that.
And I wanted to thank you, Dr. Pickle.
In the appendix, for those of you that like to dive into the numbers, here are the KD, SAFE, and SAIDI numbers nationally to utilities, over 1 million customers, and the California utilities. The only area where we look bad is versus California utilities on restoration times.
I wanted to bring up one, kind of expand a little bit on your comments. So line workers, if you remember, last year I reported that over the last several years, up to 2017, half of our line workers were graduating out of the apprenticeship program and within a year going to other utilities. We looked at compensation level, we looked at market, and it appears with the last round that we have got back into market, because with the last group of apprentices that graduated, knock wood, we have not lost any. So that looks like a good sign. And it was truly a huge impact when half the staff you spend 4 years training leave. So we've looked at that. And then dispatchers, we're currently losing dispatchers to other utilities like Pasadena and other utilities who we aren't paying market rate for our dispatchers. So we're going to be working with HR to find out again how we aren't training staff and then they're being picked off by all the other utilities. So it is a challenge of the times, and it's a challenge of the retirements that are occurring and kind of the lack of the next tier, and trying to bring a lot of new employees up to speed faster than most of us have to come up to.
Do our change processes, including salaries for linemen, are they likely to keep them over more than just the first year? When do we normally lose them, I gather, soon. We haven't lost any yet from last year's round. Are we relatively secure that that will continue?
We're tracking that and looking at if we see any of it, then we'll start trying to determine what it is. But we've implemented some different aspects of how to retain them, and it looks like, again, within the first year it looks like it's working. But we are going to have to track this every year and see what's happening. It's one of those, we can predict something, but we've got to get the real life data.
Good. Thank you very much. Very, very helpful and informative. Thank you. Thank you, Fred. Okay, now we revert to 6A, Boulder City Historic Preservation Day.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much for hearing this presentation this morning. As many of you know, is this mic working? We have a long history in the Owens Valley, and we hear about that a lot with respect to our water system and our power system, but we don't hear a lot about our history in Boulder City, Nevada, and with Hoover Dam. And recently, we've had an opportunity to engage there locally with the public by sharing one of the resources that DWP has kept over the years that's really a local historic treasure that was part of the development of Hoover Dam. So I wanted to walk you through briefly a little bit of history about a lodge that I know you may recall. You've seen some items regarding the caretaker for this property, but it's the Executive Lodge that's located in Boulder, Nevada, that LADWP continues to own after many, many years. So the Six Companies Lodge was built by the six companies who constructed Hoover Dam. DWP is really linked to the history of Boulder City because Boulder City essentially came to be in order to support the workforce that built the dam. And DWP, along with others, helped guarantee those bonds, along with Southern California Edison, that allowed for the financing of the construction of the dam in the early 30s. At the time, the lodge was built at the request of Henry Kaiser, familiar name, Kaiser Steel, and provided accommodations for executives, officials, and dignitaries, a location where they could have a formal meal and meet with dignitaries, business folks, et cetera, and host them at the home there that has a spectacular view over Lake Mead. The architect of the property was well known at the time, and these are some historic photos of the lodge from back in the early part of the 20th century. The lodge was a Spanish colonial revival and is really remained intact over many years. After the lodge was completed and the 6 companies completed construction of the dam, there was a number of properties that were transferred to DWP for approximately $30,000 at that time. And over the years, DWP kept care of them. This included many of the workers' homes in the area, as well as a municipal building. And in the early 2000s, those buildings largely were transferred over and auctioned locally in Boulder City. One of those homes was one of the main caretakers of the town at that time, and one of the heads of the 6 companies, Frank Crow. That home is now owned privately. A number of other homes as well are still maintained in their original state and are privately owned because DWP sold them. We also transferred the municipal building back to the city for its use, and right now it's used as a multi-purpose center, including a pantry for homeless and low-income folks who need it, a multi-purpose room there where we held an event in May that I'll tell you a little bit more about. This is just a little bit of the documentation. This is back in 1935 by this Board of Water and Power Commissioners that took possession of the lodge and the other properties for a total sum of $30,000. There's been a lot of questions about who exactly was at the lodge. We know that Scattergood hosted meetings there. These are some of the telegrams that were sent back then inviting dignitaries. There's also believed that President Hoover visited. When Hoover lost the election, he traveled on train from Stanford, California, through Boulder City, and he did a number of sort of back-of-train whistle-stop speeches. He actually stopped, spent a day there in Boulder City, and gave a speech to a very large crowd. And there's some evidence at the lodge that he visited, and we're still actually working with the local historic society now to determine the extent of Hoover's visit and whether it included a stay or a stop at the lodge. But it's believed that he did. And I'm sorry, this presentation is not the one that I had entirely ready for you. But in essence, we held a, the lodge is part of the historic preservation of the city. It's noted as on the National Register of Historic Places as a contributing element locally. And we held a historic preservation day there locally. I visited the lodge with our GM about 1.5 years ago, and one of the things he said is, Joe, we need to make this more accessible to the public. We need to celebrate it, we need to open it. It's a treasure, and it's part of their history. So we reached out and connected with some local folks there from the city, from a historic preservation committee, and every year they've hosted a historic preservation day. And they've had, some participation. I think last year they said maybe 20 people came. This year we literally had 150 people who participated in the day. There was a panel discussion amongst noted historians. There was a state senator who's part of the head of the Nevada Preservation Foundation who participated. I attended as well, and we got some great local media coverage. Also, the Boulder City Hoover Dam Museum, one of the board members there is the First Lady of Boulder City, and they've done a wonderful job there with the Boulder Dam Hotel. If you're ever visiting the area, it's a wonderful place to stay. It's got a fantastic little, very home-style restaurant. And they're looking to do more partnering with us on events moving forward there in Boulder City. It's really nice to visit Boulder City because they regard DWP as one of essentially the founders and the reasons that the town exists. And for people who are interested in the town's history over the years, they really have a great and high regard for the department. The demand on that day for the Preservation Day, literally the line stretched down the street to get in. And there was so much demand to go up and visit the lodge after a lecture and a lunch there at the municipal building that we had to schedule a second day and Saturday to accommodate all the people. So the lodge, we opened it up. The caretaker, Vincent, was very helpful, and folks had never seen this lodge in their city before and didn't know what that house on the hill really was until we held that day. So we're committed to going back there and doing this periodically. The Historic Preservation Foundation is very interested in doing programming with us together with the museum so we can return the lodge really as a cultural resource to the city and really a testament to DWP's place in the history of Boulder City and of Hoover Dam. And as you can tell from today's New York Times article about our potential there as far as energy storage at Hoover Dam and an upcoming project that's in the early stages. There's really a history, and then there's a future. And we're really pleased to have made contact locally with the city leaders, the city department heads, and community members who really appreciated it. We even had people come from Anaheim to go to the lodge because one of them, their grandmother, had literally worked at the lodge as a caretaker way back in the 30s when it was being used very, very actively by the 6 company's executives. And I can answer any questions that you might have.
Questions? Commissioner Noonan?
And now I just I want to applaud you and General Manager Wright for your vision. I remember, this must have been at least over 8 years ago, when there was an agendized item about maintaining this facility, paying for the caretaker, and I had no visual to refer to. I had there was no information given about the historical importance of this building. And my question at that time was, if we do have to meet with certain officials, why don't we just meet at a nearby hotel? Is this really cost effective to pay for this caretaker if this place is empty all the time? And to see this presentation and for you to suggest working with Boulder to open it to the public, it's just night and day. So now I really have a true appreciation for the facility and why it's so important to preserve it and share it with the community. So bravo to both of you. Mm-hmm.
I'll only comment that Christina's memory, it must be less than 8 years ago, because I remember you asking those questions, and I remember you seeking justification for this, and I thought they were really good and important questions at the time, as I generally do. I share your reactions to the updated report that Joe has presented. There's a lot more flesh on the bone, and this is obviously an extremely important asset of ours. And in particular, reaching out to the people who live near or in an area which is so important to us, and maintaining good relations with them is clearly in our interest and in the interest of Los Angeles, particularly in light of likely future engagement in that area. So I join Commissioner Noonan in complimenting and saluting you for your stewardship.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I buried my agenda. Here it's unburied now. 6C, Energy Imbalance Market Implementation Project Update.
So for this item, we thought we would update the board on where we are with our implementation. For the presentation, we will have Eric Montag, who is the Senior Manager of Strategic Initiatives and Resource Development Section, as well as Jamie Pinedo, who's the Project Manager for the Energy Imbalance Market Implementation Project. By way of background, the California Independent System Operator is a nonprofit public benefit corporation, also called CAISO, that was created via legislation in 1998 that combined the transmission systems of the 3 investor-owned utilities, PG&E, San Diego, and SCE, and turned over the operational control of those facilities to the CAISO. So they manage the transmission grid for about 80% of California. Subsequent to 1998, a number of publicly owned or municipally owned utilities have also joined that market. CAISO manages the flow of energy across that grid and balances both load and resources, factoring in congestion of the California markets as well as a portion of Nevada. To be clear, DWP is not a member of CAISO. The energy imbalance market is an extension of the CAISO market. What is attractive is that it's a voluntary market to the participants, and it allows for sharing those resources over a wider footprint. The CAISO has an advanced automated market system that does that balancing of load and resources in real time. And it allows entities such as DWP to participate in those, the EIM market without being a full member of the CAISO, to where we can still maintain control of our assets as well as meet our requirements on a regulatory basis for being a balancing authority. So in March of 2017, this board approved the implementation agreement that allowed LA to start the process to implement EIM into our operations. So with that, we will have Eric and Jamie provide the update.
Thank you. Good morning, commissioners. Let me just add on to Reiko's great opening there. This market's a real-time market, and the purpose is to utilize, buy, and sell energy within a very large region. There are distinct advantages to the EIM, both on a CAISO system and on a DWP level. Specific to LADWP, it provides another market mechanism for us to tap renewables, specifically potentially those that could be curtailed within a very large geographical area. This area is most of the western United States as well as Canada. And as we've discussed in prior presentations on renewables, a large geographical area is always sought out for the very different potentials that we seek in wind, solar, hydro, what have you. There are currently 7 active utilities and BAs that are actually in there now. They've gone live, they've implemented it, and they're trading. There's 4 more that will be added by 2020. LADWP will be one of those 4, so there'll be 11 total, and there are others looking to potentially join, although we don't have information on that. So that's the big overview. What we've done since this board took the action on the implementation is we've rolled up our sleeves, and this is the part where Jaime will get into more detail as to what actions we've taken and where we are going with this in the coming year to go live by April 2020.
Great, thank you. Let's see here. So the next slide will add to the market benefits. This slide will show 8 different benefits amongst others. There are 4 key ones I'd like to point out to you. Decreased renewable energy integration costs because it's spread across multiple parties. A reduced renewable energy curtailment through a broader footprint of users. Reduced greenhouse gas emissions. We'll have access to renewables outside of our own footprint. And no transmission access charges. The market relies on transmission reciprocity that allows us to use unused or untapped transmission that currently all utilities have. Some of the economic benefits from this market. The total estimated gross benefit for EIM entities since 2014 inception is reported at $330 million through March. The second quarter of this year has not been released, but that number is looking like it's going to be $400 million. Expected increased benefits with more participants. That is true. So as you can see, there is an incline year to year of the benefits. Quarter 2 is estimated at $72 million, which is highest to date. And that's because of 2 additional utilities that were fully engaged in that quarter. LADWP may receive a net benefit of $12 million per year. That was an internal study done, and obviously that will be benefiting to our customers after a few years in the market. Project milestones. The project milestones highlight some of the work accomplished. Of significance is the completion of our gap analysis. We had a third-party assessment of our systems, evaluating systems, processes, workforce readiness to join EIM. Training was started and focused on CAISO computer-based training of our staff per classification. We've completed our system requirements. We started software procurement, started negotiating with CAISO for some of our agreements, and as well, that leads us to be ready for CAISO testing. The testing is day-in-life market simulations, parallel operations, all that's required. We need to pass those tests in order to go live into the 2020 date that we are targeting. So I mentioned the significant update for this presentation would be the gap analysis findings. The gap analysis was conducted through July 2017, ending in December 2017. We continued the efforts through March because there was a lot of system requirements we needed to address. But that gap analysis identified the following constraints. Meter readiness. That allowed us to focus on the accuracy of how we're going to communicate in this new market. Procurement and vendor software development. There are various IT systems procurements. These packages will be submitted for the board consideration. Staff readiness. Significant emphasis on change management because we're changing the way we're doing business in this new market, and we need to understand how staffing and training will play a major role in this project success. Open access transmission tariff, along with other agreements, are being considered for potential impact. And CAISO testing phase. That is dictated by the market and is inflexible. It is scheduled for a once-a-year entrance to this market, which is April. We need to have all of our systems procured, tested, and ready for entrance into the market, and it becomes one of our critical paths.
Excuse me, do you have any idea on the cost relating to these requirements? What's the estimated investment that we would make?
Yes. For the IT system improvements, we're looking at $10 million. The total implementation cost would be around $20 million. And there is a labor factor as well, which is really not reported. If you're going to compare apples to apples and looking at other utilities, they normally don't show that number. And that is around $13 million. That's what we projected from our initial assessments.
So even though we look at making potentially $12 million a year, we wouldn't get our money back for that investment?
It would take a few years, 3 years,
yeah,
to recoup our investment.
Okay.
So I'd like to conclude this slide to show that the significant findings from the gap analysis highlighted that these constraints to be prepared for this market really didn't allow for a 2020 implementation, which was noted on our original agreement, 2019. And so therefore, it was recommended that 2020 would be the target. It is still an aggressive date.
So the original agreement you guys approved, this board approved, was 2019, and after this gap analysis, we made the determination with CAISO that we need to push this out an extra year to really implement all the changes we need to put in place, as well as the training and staffing up.
Thank you. So next steps for this project. Additional staff is needed to participate in this market. Change management will be the driving force for our staffing integration, training, and communication to address how we're going to do this new type of market transactions. Meter testing will give us good insight of our meter accuracy. The testing will highlight discrepancies that we need to address and if there are meter replacements required. We will review the meter test plans with CAISO to make sure we have a successful implementation plan. We're working hand in hand with CAISO, and they have expertise and SMEs, specialists to work with our specialists. As part of joining CAISO, it is required to establish ourselves as a local regulatory authority. This allows us not to be under CAISO regulation. It gives us control of all facets for metering, including testing, maintenance, and meter replacements. So just as DWP is, we are in charge of our own standards for transmission, distribution, generation, we would maintain that same type of authorities over our own facilities and maintenance. procurement packages for IT software will be submitted to the board consideration. That, as I mentioned before, is definitely one of our critical paths.
And I think we would expect those to come your way this year.
Absolutely.
And how large do you imagine the EIM staff to be comprised?
From an assessment, we are looking at approximately 38 new employees, ranging from load dispatchers, testing technicians, engineers, IT support. Actually, we're at the question point, so perfect timing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I have a couple. I'm a little confused because it was my understanding, and continues to be my understanding, that our engagement will be voluntary, which I think is essential. But as I hear you and read some of the material, it sounds like we're actually joining in 2020. So
We will be
if we're joining, how is it that we're both joining and it's voluntary?
We're joining a voluntary market. We can succeed at any time that we unilaterally. So we're joining a new energy market. It's based on an imbalance. So it's basically 5% of our total consumption.
Okay, that clarifies that.
Not joining CAISO.
Okay.
Correct.
Oh, I see. We're joining the imbalanced market, but not CAISO. And then in, I think, Reiko's initial comments, you indicated, or what, maybe one of yours, that this was an energy imbalance market for renewables. I thought it was for all energy.
It is for all energy.
Oh, sorry.
But the main benefit of EIM, California last year curtailed 350,000 megawatt hours of renewables. So that's the energy we'd be going after. And you saw the incline in that chart as you progress down the time, so you can imagine what that looks like. Right now, California is about 30% renewables. As you get up to that 50%, that amount of overgeneration that you can't put in batteries, or it needs to find a home so you don't curtail the renewables. So that's the main attraction for DWP,
For
to
us,
go
okay.
after that.
Okay, I now understand the answer to those two questions. Thank you. Other questions, comments?
I think just the last thing, I think it's important to know, if you have a staff of 38, which to me that surprises me. That seems like a very large number for participating on a voluntary basis. I understand our need to meet certain quota on renewables, and that it's nice to have that assurance. But I'd be interested in the salaries that will be demanded of these 38 positions, where they'll be housed. I know that we're looking at doing a lot of hiring, and I think the advertisement that we started off this board meeting reviewing is very important, given our discussion about infrastructure. But I'd like to see how this plays in, the priority in hiring, and when you say, the total cost is $20 million, does that include salary and housing, those individuals?
Yes, and one of the reasons it does take 38 is it's 24/7, so it's around the clock. So you're talking 3 shifts in a number of areas.
We will get you that breakdown of that information.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you very much, very helpful. Okay, filed items, monthly reports, Financial Services Organization Monthly Activities Report, April.
Ann Santilli, Financial Services. The April activity report is in your package, and I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Hearing none. Power System Monthly for May and for June, and RPS for May.
All 3 reports are in your packet, and if you have questions, I'd be more than happy to take them.
Questions? Hearing none. 8B, 2018-19 Audit Plan, Informational Report.
This is our internal audit annual plan that we presented to the board. Basically, we'll be doing contract audits, project audits, and this is an estimate of what we plan to do, and if we get management requests or other items, those will supersede some of our planning items, but this is a plan for your information.
Questions? Thank you. Water System Quarterly, October through December 2017.
Vernon Lindsay, Water System. You have the Water System Quarterly Report.
you have any questions, I have staff to answer.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Commissioner Barad has a question.
I have to
Can I
find
ask
where
Ms.
this
Julie Speck to
is.
come on up? Thank you, Julie.
Hello, Commissioner. How may I help you?
Hi. Excuse me, I'm trying to find my notes here. Okay. I wonder if you could just give us some more details regarding the stormwater workshop.
Could you tell me, please, what page you're looking?
Yes, I'm looking at 8B2, page 2, where it says Southern California Water Committee Stormwater Workshop. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
That particular workshop, and there's some things that are ongoing on that. If you're particularly interested in that, it'd probably be a good idea if I got you the detailed information
Yes,
for that
please do.
and brought it. And some things will have transpired since then.
Okay. Because that is so important, the stormwater capture effort. So I would like to know more about what the workshop entails.
Okay, there's lots going on with stormwater right now.
Correct,
And
yeah.
the workshop information I will bring back.
Okay, thank you. Also, a couple paragraphs down, Van Nuys Boulevard, Great Streets Project Kickoff. If you could give me some more information about that. The meeting was organized by the Bureau of Sanitation, attended by representatives of various city departments and design and outreach consultants. If you could give me some more
Sure, the city
information.
has a Great Streets program with opportunities to develop corridors that are improved throughout the city, and those which have stormwater capacity potential, we've been participating in to make sure we take advantage of that potential. Some of the areas of the city are not good groundwater basin productive sites, and so we don't participate in those areas, but certainly the ones in the valley there, in Van Nuys particularly, we've been participating in the development of these streets with the idea of capturing the stormwater there, and we can get you details on this particular one.
Was there any representatives there from DWP?
Yes.
And who would that be?
People from our groundwater resources planning group. At that time, I don't know who it would have been, perhaps someone from Dave Pettyjohn's organization.
All right, and then where on Van Nuys Boulevard?
That
was
I don't specifically know the extent of it, but we'll bring the whole plan back to you.
If you could bring that back with the details, where along Van Nuys Boulevard, because it runs the whole lane.
Yes.
And also, that's where the proposed metro line is going to be. So what I'd like to know is the metro, the new rapid line, figured into any of that Great Streets?
Is it coordinated?
Yes,
what you're
is it
asking?
coordinated? Okay, and where else are there, you said the Van Nuys is just the first of many great streets in the city. Where are other great streets
They're
proposed?
located, generally spread evenly throughout the city. One in each of the general geographic locations. I don't know that there is one and a plan for each council district yet at this point, but I believe that was the intention, so that each large community neighborhood would have a great street development program in that, and we can bring you the whole list of them. Some of them we are not participating in, as I said, because they don't have a direct nexus with our responsibilities, but those that do have groundwater potential, we do work with those.
If you could bring that information back to us so that we know what's planned and where
Sure.
throughout the city.
Certainly.
I mean, it sounds very exciting because it takes the city streetscape by redeveloping specific corridors for public space, economic revitalization, public safety, local culture, and I mean, it really sounds very exciting. And what I wonder about this is, how was the local community involved, if at all, in any of these decisions?
I'll bring that back as well. It's a Public Works overall a project, but I think probably specifically those that we've been involved in, we would have had knowledge of that. So the whole program has an overarching plan, and I'll ensure that we
Right.
get that back to you.
Okay, because there are many neighborhood councils in the North Valley, Van Nuys, and then I wonder if they were involved at all with the design elements.
We'll have to find out from public.
They've had quite a bit of outreach, but I don't know specifically to whom they reached out, so
Okay.
I'll bring that back.
Please bring that back.
Yeah, our involvement is usually limited to, as Julie said, opportunities to capture stormwater.
Right.
And so, and where it really comes down to is places that we may see an opportunity to make an investment because that water has value as part of our groundwater supply. So, but we'll get you a list of what all is happening with those.
Okay, good. I think those are all my questions.
The street programs vary depending upon the character and nature of the community in which they're in. So.
Yes, and that's why I think the local communities should have input in what is needed. I mean, particularly when you talk about public safety and walkable neighborhoods.
Some have been very interested in walkable neighborhoods. Some of the streets are appropriate for enhanced bicycle traffic.
And some not for bicycle
And some not
traffic.
for bicycle, yes, I understand.
Okay. Yeah, thanks very much. If you could bring that information back.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that completes the filed items, and we move to agenda item 9, discussion with neighborhood council representatives on any neighborhood council resolution or community impact statement filed with the city clerk, which relate to any agenda item listed or being considered on this agenda for the Water and Power Board.
No community impact statements or formal positions were filed by any neighborhood councils on the items on today's agenda.
Mr. President.
Commissioner Barad.
I'm sorry, I apologize, but I didn't realize that we had gone over the comments from commissioners, item 4. And I did have a comment.
Go ahead.
I had asked for a map of the EV charging stations, where they are now, and then an overlay of what is proposed. And I received that map, but I just want to make the comment that the map is very difficult to read, and it's very difficult to read the street names. I could barely make out the name Sepulveda, so, and also I don't see Van Nuys Boulevard marked at all. The reason I mentioned Van Nuys Boulevard is that's where Metro is planning their new route. And I wondered if there was any effort or thought with DWP to put EV charging stations along that route. And could we work with Metro on that? Because this is the perfect thing where people could leave their cars, take the Orange Line or some rapid transit, leave the cars, have them charge, and then take public transportation to wherever they're going, particularly downtown. And I discussed this with Metro. They hadn't thought of that. And I also discussed it with Senator Bob Hertzberg. That's his district. And he was really spearheading Prop M, which is part of this. And he hadn't thought of the charging stations. And so I said, well, I'll send you the mapping, because he didn't even know where the charging stations are or where they're proposed. So he really wants to look into that. And I think the time is now to talk about electric vehicles and charging stations. And so I wonder if this is something we could discuss at the next board meeting, and also if whoever put that map together could look at it and make it more readable, because it's really difficult to read. And it's, that overlay is hard to figure out as well, because you have a dark circle and a lighter circle, and that wasn't the kind of overlay I had in mind, but it's just hard to. Louis, yes.
First of all, I apologize for the difficulty in reading that, and that's why I use my iPhone as a zoom. I have a little camera thing I zoom onto those maps because they're just very hard to read.
I did zoom, that's how I could see the words of
Right,
it out.
but what the intent was, that was due on a large drawing on a CAT station, so it was supposed to be printed on a 36 by 24 size of drawing. So we'll probably do that for you.
What I got was an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper.
Oh, the whole city?
The whole city. Which is
So
really hard to put the whole city.
We'll make that change for the commissioner, for sure. On the comment with Metro, we are working very closely with them on all of their rail lines. We have a working group that meets regularly, talking about all the work that we have to do, along with other departments in the city that's closely working with the mayor's office and staff and with the Metro staff. On the other separate effort, we initiated the working groups. In fact, the first meeting will be this coming Friday to talk about their electrification of their buses. And they have a goal of zero emission buses by 2030, which right now is all going to be battery buses. And one of them is Orange Line. And so we are looking at leveraging existing rail stations, potentially existing stations they have that can supply additional chargers for the buses. Now you're mentioning about electric vehicles for passenger vehicles. We're also going to start looking at that. That's an excellent suggestion.
Okay, good. And I just wanted to mention today's LA Times front page, that I thought it was very timely, achieving climate goal far from ideal scenario. And it's really good for us because it talks about the electric vehicle and that, you know, that the electric, that's increasing and that's helping. But we still are using the internal combustion engines on our trucks and cars, and so the emissions are going up. And I think this is, you know, something that we really need to look at. But I think the electric vehicle is really where we're headed. Now, as you know, at the last Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Council meetings, we had standing room only to talk about the electric vehicles. And we had a presentation and suggestions of how to do that in local communities. And at our next meeting, Metro is coming. So if you might want to have somebody from DWP, that we could, you know, see how we could work on this together.
We'll be there.
Okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Louis. Thank you. And I look forward to the next map.
I'll make sure I can read it
She'll be
first.
able to read.
Yeah.
Okay, now we will go to agenda item 10, approval of the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of June 26th?
So moved.
Second, those in favor?
Aye.
They're approved. We have items 11 through 21 currently on the agenda, slated for possible consent. We have a speaker card on item 16, so we will pull that from consent. Are there any other items between 11 and 21 that commissioners would like pulled from consent?
I've stated this before, but I think that our staff is doing such an outstanding job in being proactive prior to these board meetings. And there's one individual in particular that I'd like to point out, Ms. Ann Santilli. I see two agendized items. Had she not contacted me prior to today's board meeting, I would have had a lot of questions. But sometimes she even, well, last night she sends me an email late last night. She goes, I anticipate you're going to ask this question, and she knew that I was going to. I don't know how she knew, but I guess she knows me too well. But I really want to applaud everyone here at the department for, I think, saving everyone time and kind of anticipating what questions we are going to ask. So given that, I feel very comfortable, and I do not have any agendized items to remove from
Thank you, Ann.
consent.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve items 11 through 15 and 17 through 21?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
They are approved, and the one item remaining is item 16. We have a speaker card. Barbara or Yvette, please call the speaker for item 16.
Item 16 speaker is Tony Wilkinson.
Nope, just you.
Tony, you're up.
You were called.
You are the speaker on item 16.
Tony Wilkinson. I do want to say that I'm a fan of Boulder City because a lot of the things in Boulder City are part of the great history of DWP, and I'm thankful for my own Kaiser Permanente health system, which was actually formed to provide good health to DWP employees in the middle of the desert, which a lot of people don't realize. And on number 16, the reason I wanted to speak, probably the city attorney would prefer I not, because I'm part of a process in which the determination's probably going to be made by 4 of my colleagues. But I do want to speak about the civics of how we make rates, because I think it's important here. I am in support of this contract. The department's gotten good input from this pair of contractors, and particularly Mr. Ray. I think this is going to be great for rates, but I do also note that in the past, when we've done rates, there are 2 people that were architects of the rate systems that you guys approved and have before you now. Both of them, when they were doing that, I always tended to think, these are evil geniuses. I want to say, but from both personal affection and respect, that both of those guys who created the rate system were able to combine a dedication to what the department needed to provide good, reliable service and a really important feeling about fairness and equity to ratepayers. They were able to balance those 2 things as value systems. So when we don't have those skills, I do want to say that this is an outside contract, and the people involved in that still need to be managed, provide guidance, and have internal evaluation. So I'm hoping that as the commission that we look, and I think the department's in a great situation because their interim chief financial officer has a history of competence and transparency. And I do know that there are people in the department, just as one example in the power planning system, that may not be financial people, but are able to combine that feeling of what the department really needs and true fairness to individual ratepayers. But I also think it's important that the public, in voting an office of public accountability and a ratepayer advocate, I hope that you ask that both the department and the Office of Public Accountability provide you with independent evaluation of the rate-making suggestions that come from this contract. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very helpful. Is there a motion on item 16?
Move.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Council?
Yeah, at this point, we will recess into closed session, and in accordance with California Government Code 54957.B1, we'll report any final actions taken therein.